Hey, does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee? I just made a fresh pot of coffee. Does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee? Does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee?
What the fuck is going on, man?
Do you want coffee?
Hey, listen, you're fucking...
I just made coffee. Does anybody want coffee? Who wants? Buddy, do you want coffee?
I need that, man. I need that to
Do you want coffee? I just made coffee. Who wants coffee? Does anybody want coffee?
Call a cop.
Who wants coffee? Does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee? Does anybody want coffee? Who wants coffee? Does anybody want coffee? Do you want coffee? Who wants coffee? Does anybody want? I just made a fresh pot of coffee. Does anybody want coffee?
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the Flask of Hospitality. This quirky little drink of coffee is a consumable item purchasable by Bubbles. And yes, it is a consumable item for Surgeon. But hey, who can complain about a coffee freshly brewed by Bubbles himself in the United States? How it is still nice and warm by the time it comes to Europe is a mystery to me. I mean, as much as I don't drink coffee, I know cold coffee probably wouldn't be particularly pleasant. And for this video, it'll be split into 3 segments. Firstly, the stats of the Flask of Hospitality, then its usage throughout the maps, and finally, a pretty important segment on how many charges it has and some facts around that. So let's dive right in. Flask of Hospitality is purchased by Bubbles for 35 francs each. It is worth every damn franc though, and I would highly recommend picking it up. It has 6 charges, and it takes around 4 seconds to give this coffee to another player. That's right, it's a giving item only. As a surgeon, unless another surgeon offers it to you, you won't be able to taste this delicious coffee for yourself. So what's the purpose of giving this to players? Clearly the main purpose is to make them glow brown. Totally 100%. No, there's more to the flask than meets the eye. Upon giving it to another player, they will receive the Invigorated buff. It has a duration of 45 seconds, and it provides a health regeneration of 25 HP, a 15% damage reduction against Shamblers, 10% damage reduction against Zappers, and a 5% damage resistance to explosions. Your walk speed is also boosted by 15%, and your melee swing speed is increased by 10%, but these 2 effects only last a total of around 40 seconds. Also note that the effects of the Flask of Hospitality can stack with the Canteen of Courage, although who knows how well coffee and alcohol mix. And don't come at me saying that the Canteen of Courage is like tea of some sort. It's clearly gin or scotch or something. Obviously as well, it doesn't stack with a charge, as in you don't get extra speedy. Just keep that one in mind. Alrighty, now as a surgeon, you are responsible for using the Flask of Hospitality responsibly. Similar to my video on the Extended Surgeon's Kit, link in the top right on that one, this item is another huge buff to Surgeon's arsenal, especially when stacked with the Extended Surgeon's Kit, but I'll get into that later. So first off, let's look at the item at face value. It simply buffs the stats of any player it's given to. Therefore, the coffee would be best to give to those classes that see combat the most, such as infantry, seamen, or especially officers. These classes are usually right at the front lines, so the coffee would be better utilized by these guys. Of course, you should also give your coffee to players who are actually good at the game, and are actually capable of using the buffs from the coffee to their advantage. Sure, the damage reductions can be good for very dumb players, like most mobile players, but the other buffs would likely go to waste, and remember, you only have 6 charges. Of course, I would also like to outline exceptions to this rule. First and foremost, probably the class that deserves the coffee the most are your sappers. They are always trying to run ahead, build defenses, and to ride up at the front lines because they are the ones making the front lines. Everyone knows that, as long as the sapper is actually good at sapping, they deserve a nice warm cup of coffee, because they can surely put it to good use. Not those useless combat sappers I've seen popping up though, they're kind of useless. They're about as useful as an engineer running gunslinger on defense and TF2. Utterly useless, I tell you. Adding on to this, especially sappers with siege armor equipped can use the Flask of Hospitality very well. The other bonuses don't particularly do much, like the siege armor is already a big hulking piece of metal that protects you at all angles. But the speed boost can be a massive help to siege armor players. They go from being the slowest guy on the team to the fastest guy on the team, if we don't account for charges, which is a massive boost. Massive! They can get to the front lines far quicker, which is especially useful in maps such as Korb, Trafalgar House's holdout mode, or St. Petersburg. Like, I know I'm just sounding like a broken record here, but it is a great help to players in the siege armor as long as they're actually a good sapper. If they're like a combat sapper, then they can just go get stuffed. And obviously, they aren't the only slow players. If your sappers are doing fine, which again should be the class you prioritize giving the Flask of Hospitality to, you can give the CAWFEE to players using the Cuirassiers. That speed boost can help those classes out a decent amount as well. Now I shall move on to smaller use cases of the Flask of Hospitality. Let's say your team is mostly full of mobile players and then obviously they all die right at the start or something like that, or you just have a small team to begin with. If you're in a situation where you have a super small team, like 4 players, 3 players, the Flask of Hospitality can be used on those teammates to try and give you the edge to finish the map, or at least get you to the next respawn point. It can really help in those situations. And these next 3 points are very important as well, so listen in. As I mentioned in my medical supplies video, which I'll link in the pinned comment for your convenience, the Afterburn effect means you cannot heal players past 50%. The Flask of Hospitality is a workaround to this rule. Even if the player has the Afterburn effect, giving them the Flask of Hospitality heals them that 25 HP. This can be very good in tense situations as to quickly heal burnt players, so then you can send them right back into combat. It's really good. Impaled players is another surprising use case of the Flask of Hospitality. Let's say you've been shanked by a Cuirassier and you are ages away from cover. What are you going to do? So with the Flask of Hospitality, they can instead come at you, give you a little drink of coffee, and that gives you that edge. The health boost can offset the damage from being impaled, bleeding out. Apparently coffee just stops you from being bled out for a minute, okay. And it could give you those precious seconds you need to get into cover to be properly healed. This has saved a fair few of my teammates, and it's a pretty good tactic. And finally, players carrying stuff. Just like the charge from the Officer's Saber, giving the CAWFEE to a player carrying objective items that slow you down offsets this effect. This includes the numerous items you have to grab in Korb, as well as the wheel in Westminster. Of course, in Westminster you have to pick the person carefully, because you have to give the CAWFEE to them before they pick up the wheel. You no longer have to use up a charge, a quick swig of coffee, and it can give that player a 40-second speed boost during those objectives. It's pretty good. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm already sold on the Flask of Hospitality, but I have one more section which I implore you to listen to. Now, as mentioned, the Flask of Hospitality has a grand total of 6 charges. This means you give players 6 cups of coffee and then you're out. However, if you don't really want to be spending 35 francs every time you give coffee away, then don't stress. This item is only consumed upon giving all 6 charges away, and therefore I have developed an almighty, prof-certified money-saving strategy. Literally just limiting yourself to giving 5 cups of coffee avoids the paywall. And the Flask of Hospitality acts as a permanent 35 franc bonus item to carry around as a surgeon, which is amazing because I personally hate spending money. There is a downside to this tactic though, and that is in holdout and endless maps. In holdout maps it is only limited to those 6 shots of coffee regardless. No resupply container can help you out there, and it's the same anywhere, so I guess it's just a downside of the Flask of Hospitality. And in endless the flask does recharge, but only after you use all 6 charges. Every 6 rounds you will recharge your full Flask of Hospitality. This obviously will cost you francs, so just keep that in mind. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Flask of Hospitality. It has got to be one of my favourite additions to Surgeon ever. In combination with the extended Surgeon's Kit, which basically reforms Surgeon to be, like, way better than it was. The Surgeon becomes a powerhouse of a class, and it is amazing. So yes, after you've picked yourself up the Extended Surgeon's Kit, don't forget about that, pick that one up first. But after that, I would highly recommend grabbing a Flask of Hospitality too, because it's great. Thanks for watching as always, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you when I see you.